Welcome to Money Hangout once again. Every week we talk about an important investment subject and help you understand mutual funds, besides answer as many questions that you send to us. This is brought to you by Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund and Value Research. Today we are going to talk about something which is very important for everybody in retirement, which is investing after retirement, how to deal with it. Last week there was a new scheme launched by the Prime Minister promised it in the Finance Minister also indicated about it in the budget. The Prime Minister PMVVY, a 10-year deposit scheme which will get you 8% pre-tax return. This is a 10-year deposit which was promised and you get it. I really don't understand the real compelling reason for it, because we already have something called Senior Citizen Savings Scheme offered by Government of India, managed by National Savings Organization, which currently offers 8.4%. Maybe the interest rates will come down over time, and that too has a tenure of 8 years. So we have a slightly marginally superior alternative available, but maybe this 10-year deposit where you can actually lock in your money and continue to get that, because senior citizen savings scheme will be subject to downgrades as interest rates come down. The interest rates might come down. This is one area on which I have been writing of late in many newspapers, and the kind of concerned response that I get, it has helped me understand, comprehend the anxiety of the people in retirement, and it needs to be dealt with, because all the people who have saved, worked hard and saved, but they are not exposed to the market. They have not seen the ups and downs, and the whole mental framework, the whole premise was that you have saved enough money, and if you continue to get the interest on these in some form or the other, whether it be in bank deposit, whether it be in the senior, whatever Government of India fixed and alternative plans that you get, that will be more than enough for you to sustain. It may not be true. The good news is that you are going to live longer. The bad news is that you have to really take care of this. You should be financially independent, which means that your investments must work harder, must produce as much income to support through your lifetime. And the prospect of outliving your savings is a very scary one. So you need to really plan for this. How to go about doing this? You have to really work on a very simple formula. You must understand and comprehend this, because without understanding this, you will not be able to take a step in that direction. The basic thing to understand is that what is your income requirement, and on a monthly basis or on a periodic basis, because in retirement your expense complexion changes. The money which you spend on different things changes while you are at work, but you will still be able to do some budgeting in terms of what is the monthly expense needs that you have. And at the same time, you have to really budget for, because you are going to live for 30-40 years in your retirement. You have to ensure that you have the money that is invested is growing at faster rate, is more than, at least matching the inflation, general inflation, so the money that your withdrawal rate plus the inflation, that is the return that your investments must generate on a regular basis. Otherwise, you run the prospect of outliving your savings. You will not have enough, and that is something which you need to really be concerned about, because the conservative plan which has worked for most retirees in the past may not work effectively, because of course what I am referring to is a very conservative plan, because that assumes that all your capital remains intact for a lifetime till and even after that. So from that standpoint, it is a fairly aggressive plan, but I'm still suggesting that is something which will provide you the highest comfort. There are, we worked on these illustrations, how a retiree should be able to achieve these goals, and we worked on two illustrations. One is a more conservative one. Assuming that you retired 20 years ago and you invested in a monthly income plan of a mutual fund. The monthly income plan of a mutual fund is nearly 70-80% fixed income, 15-20% into equity, and this was primarily with an idea to help you beat inflation at the same time. So if you invested 50 lakh rupees 20 years ago and and had a withdrawal rate, you took 2.5 lakh rupee in the first year and increased your withdrawal by 6% every year. So as a result of which 20 years ago in the first year you took out 2.5 lakh rupees, that by increasing it by 6% every year would have, your annual income would have grown to 8 lakh rupees. Despite this, by investing in a MIP, which is just about 15-20% into equity and remaining in fixed income, your capital, the in money that you invested, even that 52 lakh rupees has gone up to 1 crore 15 lakh, which means your capitals, the investment worth has been protected. You have also been able to increase your earning from 2.5 lakh rupees at the outset to about 4 lakh rupees in 2004, which went up to 6.5 lakh rupees by 2012, and today your income will be 8 lakh rupees. So you are able to periodically increase your income in line with the inflation, while your capital has been able to protect its worth. So the money that you are deriving from your investments is quite sustainable. You are unlikely to, even in this plan, you are unlikely to outlive your savings. All your investment has grown in value and your income is rising and nothing to worry about. So this is the most conservative plan, but most investors are still not used to it. Then we thought of another alternative, something which we are used to, though at the the underlying investment is a little more aggressive. It has a slightly higher equity allocation, but it has two components. If you invest 22.5 lakh rupees in the maximum permissible investment in the two schemes, which provides reasonably high fixed income, which is PMVVY, the new scheme, the 10-year deposit scheme, and senior citizen savings scheme, and the remaining money in a balanced fund, which is 70% equity and remaining 30% fixed income. As a result of this, the money which is 22.5 lakh rupees invested in the two guaranteed income schemes offered by Government of India, that and by virtue of investing 27.5 lakh rupees in the balanced fund, your overall asset allocation, the money which is invested in equity, is about 30-35%. The remaining is in fixed income, and the first two fixed income investment will be yielding you guaranteed income every month. And if you followed this plan, if these alternatives were available 20 years ago, of course senior citizen savings scheme was available, not the other one which is getting started now. If you withdrew 2.5 lakh rupees, which is 5% withdrawal at the outset, and increased it by 6% every year, your income would have also grown to 8 lakh rupees now. But here, instead of that 1 crore 15 lakh which got the worth of your capital in the MIP with a 15% allocation, this particular plan, your money has grown substantially by nearly 8 times. It's close to 3.83 crore. So your 50 lakh growing to nearly 8 times, 3.83 crore. Your income has grown. Maybe it is about time that you can actually increase your withdrawal rate. If you want to increase your withdrawal rate from more than 8 lakh rupees, you have ample headroom. So a methodical approach, being conservative with your withdrawal rate at the outset, steadily increasing your withdrawal rate in line with the performance of your investment, making sure a small part of your money is always invested in equity, and taking a long-term view. If you do this, you can have a peaceful, happy, and a fairly rewarding retirement.
Thank you, Dhiren.
Thank you.
In our first question, Amol says that for any financial goal, knowing the target amount is important, but if one does not know how long one is going to live, how can one possibly calculate this?
Err on the side of caution. Have much more than your estimates, and as I was saying, that making sure that you are invested in a manner that money is able to protect its value, and your withdrawal rate should be conservative. So assuming that you need 10 lakh rupees a year, and you are thinking of a 10% withdrawal rate from a corpus of 1 crore, then you have to make sure that, and so this is a very unrealistic plan. This is a plan which might fail, because if you take 10 lakh rupees and there are some years in which the investments performed, deliver you 10%. There are some years in which the investments do not deliver you 10%. And you also have to make sure that the residual money, even if you take out 10%, the remaining money is able to match inflation. So the only way to deal with it is, have as much of a retirement corpus as possible, or on the side of caution, have a conservative withdrawal rate, and invest in equity, so that the long period that of your retirement, the money is able to at least match the inflation. The investment performance of your savings should at least match the inflation after withdrawal.
In our next question, Mahesh says that he has held 500 shares in Infosys since the last 10 years and has got good dividends from there. However, experts are saying that one should get out of IT. He says that should he sell them and invest the money in the PMVVY?
Uh, it's a very difficult question, and his own experience is something to go by. And last 10 years were not the finest in the life of Infosys. But assuming that, he should just he should look at his needs more holistically, just not look at his position in Infosys, what all he has. I think financial planning for his needs requires a more holistic approach than one position that he has, one stock that he has. Of course, PM VVY will only give you 10%, no more, no less, and I don't know what happens after 10 years. And all the money that you get from PMVVY will be taxable, as compared to the dividend that you get from Infosys is completely tax-free. Your capital would have also gone up in Infosys, and this is the basic difference between equity and fixed income. Your returns are taxable in fixed income, and it will your capital loses value, because the 10 lakh rupee that you will invest in this will be 10 lakh rupees 10 years from now, and you would have consumed all the income from it. Whereas in case of Infosys, the capital, your investment worth of Infosys would have definitely gone up in the last 10 years, besides the dividend that you have derived from it, which is completely tax free. So this is the primary, and all this, the benefit of Infosys also gets extended to equity mutual fund. They carry the same character. So that is what I'm referring to. You are on to a good plan. Infosys might be rewarding, but I think it's also important to take a holistic view than just one position.
Next up, Dilip says that you advise long-term investment in mutual funds to benefit from the power of compounding. But in an article, you also advocated rebalancing. So won't this affect the rate of compounding?
Yes, it will affect the rate of compounding. And rebalancing is basically moderating your risk and ensuring a part of your money gets locked in. You are able to lock a part of the gains. At the same time, when the markets are in difficulty, you are able to invest while it's low. A lot of investors it is an anxiety management tool available to you. And choosing the asset allocation is entirely your choice, because if I'm not saying that you have to really rebalance it to 50% equity, 50% debt. Choosing the degree of asset, the asset allocation that you want to have, you could well have 90% in equity, 10% in fixed income, and then an annual rebalancing will not be a very substantial drift. It will not be, because unless until you decide on an asset allocation, how do you rebalance and how do you lock in? Because markets will go haywire once in a while. Every 5-7 years we see a big decline. How do you profit from that? And that is quite unnerving for most investors, for most common investors who are investing for a very important goal of their life. Their life plan depends on those investments, and for them rebalancing is like an insurance. But if you understand, and if you really don't get unnerved by that, you can do without rebalancing.
Mr. Chotwani asks if housing societies can invest in mutual funds.
Some places they can. It's a state subject. Every state has different kind of regulations. In Maharashtra, where they are allowed to invest in UTI, the erstwhile UTI, I don't know, it extends to the current UTI as well. but otherwise they are not allowed to invest in other mutual funds. Some states do permit.
Next up, Mr. Banerjee asks if a pure equity fund or a balanced fund is better post-retirement. Also, for managing regular living expenses, should his money be in liquid funds or in ultra short-term funds?
It depends. In his retirement, I think if you actually become risk averse or you get little conservative, I think the mindset changes when once you retire and you see once the regular monthly salary stops coming in, investors do get little conservative. And understandably so. There is a reason why investors will be very worried if they see a decline in value of those investments. So from that standpoint, anybody in retirement should always consider a balanced fund as compared to an all equity fund, because it will be a relatively steadier ride with the market. You'll be able to navigate the market a little more steadily as compared to an all equity fund. So, but depends. You have to really look at all your investments holistically, because most investors, they will have some pension, maybe some rental income, maybe some deposits, maybe some money lying in the short-term bond funds or liquid fund or some bonds, and then some equity. But as I was saying that, in your retirement, you should take a stock of all the money that you have. Make sure that you have at least a third of that money in equity, so that and your withdrawal rate for the essential money should not be more than, should not exceed 5-6%. And so that with 33% allocation to equity, 5% withdrawal rate, I think most investors, assuming we are faced with a very difficult situations in future, despite declining interest rates, I think most investors will be able to navigate through these things. And maybe the withdrawal rate 4-5%, it looks very conservative, but if inflation comes down, I think those withdrawal rates look reasonable. So this is the basic principle which you have to follow. And of course, while you are working while you are still working and your retirement is still a few years away, you have time to invest more and have more, because there is absolutely no substitute to having more than enough, because assuming that you have been able to save 2 crore rupees for your retirement 15 years from now, and you actually need just 1 crore of rupees, which can support your income as well as your appreciation need of that capital. So if you have 1.5 crore, you have margin of error. It is always good to err on the side of caution while doing your estimates. In fact, whatever be your monthly expenses, most investors actually do not compound their current expenses. If our monthly expense is about 50,000 rupees or a lakh of rupees today, we will think of it as a constant, but we will think of our investments growing or compounding well. It's important that you also think in terms of compounding the expenses that you need in future. Your current 50,000 rupees expense need will translate into something very substantial 15 years from now, 20 years from now.
Also, Dhiren, he wants to know if he should use liquid funds or ultra short-term funds for his regular living expenses.
If you're investing in a balanced fund and that is all there to it, maybe you should have a very small withdrawal rate. 3-4% withdrawal rate should be able to support that, because a balanced fund also has a 30-35% fixed income component, which is a fixed income component, and the tax treatment of that is entirely like an equity. But if you have earmarked a certain part of your money, if you have actually allocated to a fixed income fund, then I would say ultra short-term bond fund or a short-term bond fund will not be very volatile. It should not be in a liquid fund, because those funds are likely to generate little more return than the liquid fund. And so that little return will be actually 10% more return, because the difference from as compared to 6.5 to 7.5 is quite meaningful on a large sum of money if it from which you intend to derive income.
Next up, Amit asks which types of investments for senior citizens are tax free.
In fact, for senior citizens, there is absolutely nothing which is tax free. Only the money which you take out from your PPF account is tax free. And after that, any income which is derived in the form of which is coming to you in the form of interest is taxable. The only way to really bypass this is to be investing in a balanced fund or investing in a vehicle which is able to derive the return in the form of a capital gain, because mutual funds are a very effective way of converting your interest income into capital gain if you hold it for longer. Because if you invest, if you make a deposit in a bank, the interest income is taxable. If you put your money in senior citizen saving scheme or PMVVY as well, all the returns is in the form of interest, and it is taxable. As compared to that, if you invest in an equity income fund, for example, these funds invest 33% into arbitrage opportunity, 33% into equity, and 33% into fixed income. So the nature of this fund, the character of this fund is dominantly fixed income. It is 2/3 into fixed income and 1/3 into equity. But because of the arbitrage position, the returns that you derive from this is completely tax free, because if held for over 1 year, because it is, from a taxation point of view, it is all equity. Likewise, a balanced fund which is 2/3 equity, 1/3 fixed income, but the return which you derive from a balanced fund is completely tax free if held for over 1 year. So mutual funds could be very effective for you to actually plan your taxes, derive the return from your investments in a manner that they are tax efficient. And these are two possible vehicles which can convert a significant part of your fixed income return into tax free because of their design.
Next up, Mr. Jagannathan asks if agents receive the same commission from all mutual funds and if this affects the choice of the recommendation.
Yes, agents get commission from mutual funds. Different mutual funds, for different class of mutual fund, the rates could be different. The mechanism of getting those commissions could be different. But normally, and in case of equity fund, there could also be the mutual funds could be giving an incentive to the intermediary, to the mutual fund agent, some upfront commissions. So that can definitely influence their choice or recommendation. But by and large, they work in a very narrow range. And I would say that good mutual fund agents, they try and actually side with the customer, with the investor, because if they really recommend not so good or poor performing mutual funds for earning higher commission, they will actually lose their customer. So in a certain way, incentives do work, and many a times, there are funds on which they get incentive where the choice doesn't matter. For example, the recommendation of a liquid fund, there is hardly a difference between a great liquid fund and a not so great liquid fund. But when it comes to an equity fund or a balanced fund and other things which has where there is a selectivity which can matter, I think despite the incentives, many mutual fund agents might be making those recommendations carefully. Yes, there will be black sheeps in the whole business, and there are large institutions, banks, where the faceless organizations, when they get into this business, sometimes they are more guided by those incentives. Individual mutual fund agents tend to be siding with their customer, or they definitely have their customers' interest in their mind.
Next up, Krishna asks if rental income is a good mode of providing for retirement.
Yes, rental income is a very useful, is a good mode, but it has a lot of variable. It has 2-3 things which one has to worry about. If you want a peaceful retirement, you have to really 3 things. One is the ticket size is big. If you're buying a house to be put on rent, it's a different story, which means that you can't really diversify. It's a big chunk of money which has to get into that. Then you have to worry about periodic vacancy. Your tenants will come and go once in a while, and you will be out of income. Third is maintenance. So if you are able to deal with these 3 things, it could be a very effective thing, because the advantage of this is you have of course, the charm of real estate. You have to be lucky with the kind of the place where you have the accommodation, where you have the house which can be put on rent. It gets inflation adjusted, and you also have appreciation. So all that I have been talking about equity, that an investment should be appreciating in value and should be producing income. The only problem is that you have to manage it yourself. In case of a mutual fund, you are delegating it to somebody else and diversifying very effectively.
Asha asks if she should add her name as a second holder to her parents' mutual funds to ensure a smooth succession. And is this possible if they are already being held under both parents' names as an either or survivor option?
No, it will not be possible for her to add her name to the investment which has already been made. Uh, yes, if a new investment is being made, she could be the third holder. But the way to deal with it is she should be the nominee. And while one is making investment, one can have multiple nominations and put percentages to that. And she should ensure that she is the nominee in all those investments, and being the only nominee ensures that she is a 100% beneficiary of she should all those investments or the worth of those investments should be transmitted to her.
In a related question, Mr. Kapoor, who is 79, is planning investments for his children rather than for himself. He has 50 lakhs in debt funds and asks how he can invest them.
50 lakh, sorry Neil, is it 50 lakh or 50,000?
50 lakhs.
Sorry. 50 lakh in fixed income fund, I think you will do your children a favor by making sure, because if you are not deriving income from it, it need not be in fixed income. And if this is, which means that these are going to be very long-term investment. These might be useful for some, for some goal of your grandchildren's education or your children's retirement. And if that is the case, and depending on that time frame, I think you will do them a favor by investing it in a manner which will grow faster than inflation and will be well managed. So I would say that somebody like you should be moving all this money in one or two balanced fund, but to reduce the risk of not catching a market high, don't do it lump sum. Spread it. If this is a very important money, then spread it over a period of anywhere between 18 to 36 months, 1.5 to 3 years on a monthly basis. So invest it in a fixed income fund of the company in whose balance fund you are going to invest, and move it periodically over the next 18 to 36 months. And in 36 months, all this money will be invested in a balanced fund. It will be growing, and all the returns from a balanced fund will be completely tax free if held for over 1 year and more. So they will produce superior return. You will be able to, by following this plan, you will be able to eliminate the possibility of getting wrong with your market timing, and all the returns from this investment will be tax free, and they will generate reasonably good return with less volatility as compared to an all equity fund.
Next up, Mr. Sahu asks if NCDs or non-convertible debentures are a good option for retirement planning.
Yes, they could be, they're useful. They generate fixed income, but the problem of NCD is that you have to worry about few things. One, you don't get diversification. Your money is as good as the quality of the company whose NCD you are buying. Then, so you should look at the credit rating of that. So you don't get diversification. So I think to beat all this, you have to see that what kind of return you want, what kind of opportunity is this, and I think most investors are better off investing in a fixed income fund, because reducing your risk with a fixed income, if you have a sizable part of your money invested in one or two companies NCD, and those companies are unable to honor the commitment of repayment of your principal and interest on time, you will be in real trouble. When it comes to a mutual fund, maybe mutual funds will also have that exposure, but the advantage of diversification will kick in, that it will be a very small part of your investment. In fact, and you should look at your investments holistically. That is what I have been, we have been discussing in this hangout session, is that take a holistic view, make sure that a third of your money is in fixed income, a third of your money is in equity, to ensure that you don't run the risk of, and so a holistic planning is very important when it comes to investing in retirement.
We now move to our final question. Mr. Rajagopal says that if a mutual fund doesn't deliver or sinks, The funds hide under the clause that past returns are not indicative of the future and that returns are not guaranteed. He also remembers the UTI fiasco. So, what recourse is available if a mutual fund does not perform?
You don't have a recourse available. I think mutual funds don't perform. You have to be careful about it. There are occasions when mutual funds don't perform. Also, I don't want to get into a. It's a long debate that whether UTI failed or not. But yes, UTI was a great disappointment, and UTI Unit 64 actually stopped taking money, so there was a freeze on transactions. But I don't think decline in market. We have seen big declines in the market. If you look at the past 20 years, we saw a big decline in 92, 93. We saw a decline again in 2001. As recent as 2007, the market boomed, and then 2008 was the global financial crisis. We saw one of the worst phase of the market. Despite all this, investors have proved to be they have benefited from the market, they have benefited from mutual fund if anybody was a regular investor. So I think there is a great safety in the method in which you invest mutual fund. Market is going to remain like this. Markets will be risky, and mutual funds will disappoint you if you invest with the expectation of a high return. Because a lot of investors who are investing right now, they think that markets will continue to deliver you 20% return every year. Markets do give you a very reasonably high return, but they don't give you these returns in a nice smooth line. They are not 20% yielding fixed deposits. They give you 50% one year, they go down in value by 15% next year. Sometimes they go down by 50% some year. And overall, you benefit from the market when you hold it for a long period of time. And to eliminate these possibilities of catching a market high, which could be a disaster for any investor, is what we are talking all the time. Never invest lump sum. Invest regularly. Average your equity investments. Diversify your investments. Make sure you are buying those mutual funds which are reasonably diversified. If you do all these things, you will be able to reduce your risk substantially. But by any yardstick, mutual funds, you can reduce risk, and there is a risk reduction even in its design. But by any measure, they never become risk-free. If you want absolutely risk-free return, you should not invest in mutual fund.
Thank you, Dhiren. Any final comments?
Yes, investing in retirement is crucial that you open your mind. Be prepared for a complete change in the environment that we have lived so far, of high return from deposits. Also, understanding equity and the benefits of equity and why it tends to match or beat inflation over time is very important, because by being risk averse and not willing to understand and not investing in the right way could could put you in difficulty, and the prospect of outliving your savings is a very scary one. You need to really prepare for this. Earlier you do, better off you'll be.
Thanks, Dhiren.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. Please join us next week on our next Money Hangout.